Kevin De Bruyne.
Mijn favoriete ploeg is Liverpool en mijn favoriete speler is Michael Owen en daar zou ik graag willen bij spelen.
Guys, let's bring him home. He's told us already from when he was a kid, Liverpool have been his favorite football club. So bring him home. Bring him home. KDB will be leaving Manchester City come the end of the season. Why not bring him to Liverpool? Who says no? Let me know. In all seriousness, people, look, one of the greatest Premier League midfielders will finally be leaving Manchester City, where he has won countless Oz trophies. Premier League after Premier League after Premier League, some FA Cups in there, a League Cup, Champions League, Super Cup. You know, he has absolutely won it all. And, you know, fortunately for the rest of the Premier League, he will be leaving Manchester City. And, you know, that chapter will now come to an end. And we will remember fondly of all the great memories that we've seen, you know, of Kevin De Bruyne. But as one door closes, another must open. And there is a lot of conversation around Kevin De Bruyne as to what he's going to do in the summer, because apparently there have been offers, you know, potentially from the MLS, you know, somewhere where he could potentially move with his family, with his children, and, you know, start life over there for the remainder of his footballing career. And then, of course, after retirement, there've also been talks about going to Saudi as well. Of course, they would absolutely love to have a Kevin De Bruyne there, but I'm pretty sure that there are a ton of European clubs who would be after Kevin De Bruyne as well. You know, I don't think he's going to be short on suitors, especially in Europe. So I feel he did mention, you know, after the game against Crystal Palace, where he had an absolutely excellent game, he did mention, you know, he hasn't decided anything yet. Nothing has been, you know, thought about. It's only really been about a week since he made that decision to, you know, leave Manchester City. So there's still probably a ways to go in order for him to decide on what his next move is and what's the best thing for him and his family. But we can't deny that this guy's talent and ability is absolutely amazing. So why Kevin De Bruyne to Liverpool? Why does that seem like a deal that, if it were to be done, Liverpool would really improve and bolster their midfield? Well, it's mainly because Liverpool might be losing their own wizard in the team, and that is Trent Alexander-Arnold. And if Trent Alexander-Arnold goes, well, Liverpool are going to have a lack of creativity in the team. We've seen Liverpool this season without Trent Alexander-Arnold, and the creativity is pretty dire in the team. Mohamed Salah, of course, he will try and he will do his utmost in order to help with that, but ultimately it's just not the same as when Trent Alexander-Arnold is there, even though he has been quite reserved in comparison to other seasons this season under Arne Slot. Two players who are so alike in terms of their play style, two players who have absolutely beautiful right foot, two players who can pass the ball probably better than anybody on the planet at this current moment in time. And if you're going to lose one, why not bring in the other? We've seen with players as they've gotten older that they seem to get a lot smarter, they seem to get a lot better. The Pirlos, the Xavis of this world, you know, Iniestas. With age, these players just seem to go into a whole new stratosphere. It's like they're doing yoga and their minds are just at peace, and they find the game of football so easy. And I believe that if you're going to lose someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold, and of course you're then looking for that creativity, someone like Kevin De Bruyne on a free in the summer, to me, makes the most sense, because it's someone who doesn't necessarily have to play the amount of games, you know, that he's probably played throughout his career, you know, 40, 50, 60 games that he might play. But what he can do is he can offer you that level of experience of someone who is a serial winner, has been part of a winning setup, but also someone who understands the game really well and still has that quality and ability to affect games in many different ways. Now, when we talk about Kevin De Bruyne and we talk about his playing style and why he might be a good fit for a team like Liverpool, you know, we define him as a player with exceptional vision, someone who's got pinpoint passing, he's got deadly shooting ability. He's someone who operates, primarily as an advanced playmaker, but of course sometimes he does sit in, that midfield, and we all know about the rotations within a Pep Guardiola midfield. I would say he's probably deemed as he's got like a rare ability to be able to dictate the tempo of a game. He's got intelligent movement, and to be honest, as much as he's been injured and as much as I know we've seen physically that, it's not the same Kevin De Bruyne, he still has this relentless work rate about him as a midfielder, and he still has that, that kind of tank that, yes, it's not the same as it was a few seasons ago. I totally get that. But he's still got that in his locker, and he can pull it out whenever he needs to. Of course, as I mentioned before, his passing range is absolutely elite. Whether it's a Chris through ball, slicing open in the defense, whether it's a lofted crossfield switch or a perfectly timed assist in the final third, he consistently delivers with precision and intent. Now, I feel like with someone like KDB, what sets him apart is not just the accuracy, but the creativity and unpredictability behind every single pass. On top of that, his shooting is equally dangerous. He strikes the ball so cleanly with both power and finesse, usually from distance, to be fair, and has a knack for scoring, these stunning goals, and especially goals in big moments. He's definitely a player who, he blends technical brilliance with tactical intelligence, making him one of the most complete and influential midfielders in world football. We are not people talking about your average footballer. We are talking about one of the greatest midfielders of his generation and one of the greatest midfielders in Premier League history. For me, when I watch Liverpool's midfield, I think they do lack that, I would probably say, that kind of smart midfielder, that creative midfielder. Now, it might just be because of the job role that, of course, Arne Slot is asking of a McAllister or Gravenberch or even a Szoboszlai. But even Szoboszlai, someone who is probably supposed to be more on the creative side, he really has lacked in these last 2 seasons. And he's shown that when you do put him in these areas of the pitch to try and affect play, he just isn't good enough to be able to do that. But what he does provide, of course, is that energy, something that maybe Kevin De Bruyne has lost over the years. But unfortunately, especially this season with how poor Manchester City have been, you can see it's the physicality that they've really lost, in this last year, in this last season. And, for Kevin De Bruyne, having to try and cover ground, for players like Gundogan or Kovacic or anybody else who's kind of been in there, it's always going to be a difficult thing. Add to the fact that he has had a few injuries, it was always going to be tricky for Kevin De Bruyne in terms of when we're watching the physicality side of the game. But when we're talking about IQ, when we're talking about cleverness, when we're talking about a player who is brilliant in those forward areas, as I keep stressing to people, don't for 1 second think that his ability has gone. His ability will always remain, because he was never a player who relied on pace. He was never a player that relied on the physical side of the game. He had that, and of course, if he's got that, then perfect and good for him. But if you put him in the right setup, if you have him potentially playing maybe even a little bit deeper, or genuinely as that number 10, where the defensive work isn't going to necessarily be so high, I believe you'll see the best of Kevin De Bruyne again, or at least as close as we can possibly get to. And that is one of my main reasons as to why signing someone like Kevin De Bruyne would be good for a Liverpool midfield. Again, like I mentioned before, it's not necessarily about starting every game. It's not about, being available for 60 games a season. Of course, I know we've tried it before, with Thiago, and unfortunately, he just was not able, to stay fit enough. But I don't feel that will be too much of an issue, with Kevin De Bruyne. I do believe that he will play enough games. He does seem like a player who is still quite hungry to play at the top level. So again, these are all if, buts, ands, or maybe. I personally believe a team like Liverpool could do with a player of his ability, a player of, his high level of IQ, and, a player of his experience in the team. And I feel that they would do well to get him in. But enough about me, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Should Liverpool sign Kevin De Bruyne in the summer, or should we let him ride off into the sunset and go to MLS or Saudi or even just another European club? And will we regret that decision? I'll catch you guys in a bit. Peace.